Hello, and welcome to the Mighty Emotions podcast, where we talk openly about our emotions so that we can have the capacity to receive more of what life has to offer. I'm your host, Giselle. I'm an emotional resilience coach, and my mission is to empower you and equip you with the tools to take control of your life by learning to master your emotions. If you're ready to eliminate negative patterns of avoiding and numbing so you can have inner peace, increase self-esteem, improve your relationships with others, and get more out of life, then keep listening. So today I want to talk about boundaries because this comes up a lot. A lot of people that are used to people pleasing, we see online, you just need to set boundaries and everything will be great. And boundaries are really, really important. But there's a lot of nuance that I teach my clients, and I wanted to talk about kind of at a high level today. First of all, there's a difference between setting a boundary because we are trying to protect ourselves, we're trying to defend ourselves, and then there's setting a boundary because we're trying to hide or we're trying to avoid dealing with difficult emotions. A lot of people I know do this. I did this as well. When we can't really manage our emotions, we tend to have a lot more boundaries, right? So what are boundaries? There's different types of boundaries. There's physical boundaries, mental boundaries, emotional boundaries. And physical boundaries we're all pretty clear on. Like, I don't want anyone hitting me, right? Mental boundaries and emotional boundaries tends to get a lot more flip-floppy and confusing. And the reason for this is because they're just not talked about, and we use the word boundaries as like a catch-all, and we don't really get specific around what do we mean by boundary. Your boundaries are where you begin, where you end, and someone else begins. It's everything that defines your level of comfort, your level of tolerance, the treatment that you'll accept, what you'll accept and what you won't accept. Those are your boundaries. And typically, people who people please have very weak boundaries because they accept a lot. Or if you're like me, you get so tired of accepting all of this stuff and feeling taken advantage of that you hop into the other extreme where you put up really, really firm walls and you don't allow people in and you push everyone away because you're hiding. Like you don't want to deal with confrontation or conflict, and you don't really know how to manage the emotions, and you don't have strong emotional boundaries. So sometimes you're taking on the emotions of someone else and making yourself responsible for their emotions as well. And so that's where it all gets kind of like muddy and messy. And so when people come to me, we don't work on boundaries right away. We work on developing clarity around you and becoming comfortable with your emotions so that you don't need as many boundaries. And it can be a lot more clear what they actually are, where your limits are, what you can tolerate, what you can't, what you can accept, what you can't. I know the internet, makes things seem really simple, but life really is about nuance. And we do have to take this nuance into consideration when we're showing up. If I set a boundary really harshly and I'm only thinking about me and my discomfort, I might cause harm. And we might cause harm anyway. That's just part of being human. But setting a boundary respectfully entails like being in alignment with myself. Like knowing myself, being comfortable with setting that boundary requires really knowing myself and knowing like, I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm not doing this to hide. I'm not doing this to control your behavior. I'm doing this because this is what I need for me. And we get to a place where we can say that firmly when we've spent the time working on ourselves and developing our relationship with ourselves. Then it becomes a lot easier to communicate boundaries. So a lot of times we'll communicate boundaries like, you need to stay away from me, or you need to not do this. And the boundaries are focused externally. And that's when you know that it's not coming from a healthy place. It's coming from a place of trying to control someone else so that you can feel safe. When in reality, setting boundaries about saying, I'm not going to accept that treatment. I'm not going to accept you talking to me that way. I'm an adult. You're an adult. That's unacceptable to me. I'm not going to tolerate you treating me this way. If you can't keep your word, if I can't trust you, then I'm not going to rely on you anymore. Do you hear the difference there? Right? Boundaries is about communicating, this is what I need. This is what I stand for. This is what I'm coming from. It's really about us. It's about saying, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know what I'll accept. I know what I can tolerate. And it's about knowing that it's really clear, because we can deal with, the emotions surrounding it when we're not firm in ourselves and we don't really trust ourselves or know ourselves deeply. Then we can have a lot of shame and guilt and fear and anger come up around setting boundaries. That's really why setting the boundary is hard. It's because we first need to know how to process the emotional responses to us setting those boundaries. A lot of us grew up feeling very powerless and being powerless. I mean, as children, we have a lot less power. And when we're in that circumstance and we don't get to learn how to process our emotions fully, we kind of carry that feeling of powerlessness into adulthood. And while there's a lot that we're powerless over and there's a lot that's not in our control, we have a lot more agency than we realize as adults. But we tend to look at setting boundaries as like from a childlike perspective almost. And we can be really afraid of it. And we could be really afraid of a response or a reaction. And we don't really trust that we can handle it. And that's not what setting boundaries is about. It's not about, oh, I shouldn't set this boundary because I'm afraid of the consequences. It's about, this is what I need to take care of me. This is where my limits are. And damn the consequences, I'll deal with them. Right? Because I need to be true to my needs. I need to take care of myself. That's what setting boundaries is about. It's about taking care of ourselves. But there's steps that come before that. So in my Getting Back to You program, we work on boundaries at the end. We work on boundaries at the end. We start looking at your relationship to your emotions and working on that and helping you learn to build a healthy relationship with your emotions. And then we focus on you and building a healthy relationship with yourself and coming into your present day self and learning how to respond as your present day self and really like owning who you are today. Because a lot of times we're carrying old stories about ourselves. And so we work on that together. And then at the end, we work on our relationships to others, which includes communicating our boundaries. But by the time we get to that, we're so clear on who we are that the setting the boundaries is I don't need to give you a script. You don't need any instruction because you embody it. You know what to do. My client, he truly just astounded me. I'm so proud of him and the work that he did, because as we worked on himself and getting clear on himself and deepening that relationship with himself, and as he learned how to cope with his emotions, not just cope with them, because we all cope with them, but as he learned how to collaborate with them and work with them and process them in a healthy way, he started setting boundaries on his own. We didn't even need to talk about it. He just started doing it. And the way that I teach it is really focus on that like self-care aspect of setting boundaries. It's like we don't need to be setting boundaries left, right, and we just need to know what our limits are and honor that. But we can't honor that if we haven't first allowed ourselves to get honest and really process and honor our emotions as they come up. Like all of it is done in a certain order so that when you do set the boundary, there's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no fear. You're not thinking about the other person. You're thinking about being true to yourself, and your system is used to that because we've been practicing it week over week. Your system just knows how to feel safe doing that. And so if you would like to learn how to do that, you'd like to learn how to set boundaries and feel safe, and you would like to deepen your relationship with yourself so that it comes naturally and effortlessly, and you don't even think twice about it. You're not stressing about, oh, I need to set this boundary. You just know how to recognize when you need to communicate, and you can communicate it in a way that focuses on caring for yourself and doesn't factor in the other person's emotions at all. If you want to learn how to do that and you would like my support with that, then go to the link in the show notes, go to the link in my Instagram bio, and, register for my wait list, and we can set up a call and talk about what you're going through and how I can help support you, because setting boundaries is important and it does come in the process. But the way that I teach it allows it to flow so naturally and effortlessly. You'll almost be like, I can't believe I did that. Right? And that's the result that I get that's what I hear from my clients. It's like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, that used to be so difficult for me. But it's like, yeah, setting boundaries is the easy part. It's all the legwork before that, really, that we do together incrementally and slowly, and you build your way up to that. So yeah, I'd be honored to support you in that if that's something that you need help with. And let's set up a call. Let's chat about it. And if you enjoyed this episode, let me know. Rate the podcast on Spotify. If you find these episodes helpful, DM me on Instagram at mighty_emotions and let me know if there are any other topics that you would like me to talk about. And with that, I love you for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.